Okay, switching gears back to Concacaf Gold Cup action. Mexico, the giant of Concacaf, the reigning champions of not only the Gold Cup but the Nations League, played against the Dominican Republic, who debuted in the Gold Cup. As Mexico defending champions, you would think it would be, well, an easy game. The numbers right there, they don't quite tell the story. Look at the shots and shots on goal. Yes, Mexico outshot Dominican Republic, but Dominican Republic held strong, held their heads up. I gotta be honest with you guys. This game starts, and the limited knowledge that I have about the Dominican Republic, they made a run at the U20 World Cup. They were the second place team to the US. They ended up qualifying for the Olympics, very respectable at the Olympics. And then you start reading about the players they have in Europe. It's a team with not a lot of experience, but a lot of players in La Liga, a lot of players in the farm system, if you will, in La Liga, a few players in Russia, players out in Belgium. And for long stretches of this game, I thought they dominated a Mexican national team.
I don't know if it goes too far as to say dominated. I think at times...
Well, let me tell you why real quick. Well, why I say dominated, Shaq, the Mexican national team scored 2 goals off of set pieces, something they don't rarely do.
Had their chances.
At the run of play, they didn't really have a lot of chances. And you look at the Dominican Republic, if there's another 5 minutes in this game, I don't think it's a question. It's a different conversation.
We could be having a different conversation. I agree with that. I thought certainly to start with, again, I thought the Dominican Republic matched Mexico in a way that I certainly wasn't expecting. And kind of coming into this tournament, getting a lot of discussion we've been having about the Mexican national team, their own issues. I thought this would have been exactly the start that they needed. And certainly score-wise, it shaped that way. And while Mexico got themselves ahead, albeit through set piece, and I thought very well taken goals indeed, Dominican Republic always posed a threat on the counterattack. And I thought that's where they looked really dangerous early on. I just wondered if that would be enough, if that would peter out. And if kind of, given the 2-goal start that the Mexican national team earns themselves, if they would have just taken this game by the scruff of the neck. But the Dominican Republic, to their credit, at no point lay down. At no point stopped believing in themselves or the threat that they continue to pose. And got a just rewards for it. And gave Mexico a scare that I hope serves as much as a warning call to the Mexican national team as anything. Because again, we've been having this conversation about these big North American giants coming into this tournament and the issues they've had. So tonight, the U.S. got exactly the start they wanted. I thought Mexico were on their way to doing that, got the 3 points, but maybe they also got to learn a little bit more about themselves than we could say the U.S. learned about themselves.
Absolutely. You know, one thing I learned here, Giannis, is I see a Mexican starting 11 where in the midfield to start off with was Edson Alvarez, their captain, and how important, how vital he is, especially physically. And he's not a physical player in terms of speed or in terms of keeping up with other athletic players, but just his presence. When they moved him in the second half, they were up. They moved him to center back, and they inserted Charlie Rodriguez into that midfield for him. I thought they were overran in the midfield. It seems like they lost a lot with leaving Edson Alvarez out of that midfield.
Absolutely. You know, I mean, his experience along the set pieces, we all knew that. I mean, he hasn't had the best of times in the Premier League. I think we all know that. But it hasn't been easy for West Ham, which has been just a terrible team since Davy Moyes left, right?
Yeah.
Lopetegui comes in, Graham Potter, not much, right? If it wasn't for the 3 teams that came up and went down, they would have been in real trouble. But look, I think if you look at that, and no surprise with Alvarez and with Mexico, that they're not great. I mean, last 2 or 3 years, we've been talking about the worst Mexican team in history. We were in Qatar. Yeah. We saw them. That wasn't good. What they do have is players like Alvarez. They have Javier Aguirre, who is a good manager, who comes back, and they have 2 Jimenezes, spelled differently.
Yes,
in Santi and Raul, which I really like. Those 2 players, at least in our region, when I look at the U.S. national team, day and night. I mean, legitimate players. We continue as U.S. to look for strikers. They're just going to continue to develop, right? And I think, as you said it right, Alvarez in the center, and they're coming back because they've made a commitment. They've made a commitment to their coach. They've made a commitment to their country. They have everybody in this tournament, even though the narrative about the Gold Cup is different. And I hate it, by the way, because it shouldn't be. So it wasn't a great game, but it's a start of rebuild of Mexican national team. We'll just have to see if it comes in time for the World Cup.
Shaq, what about the way that Dominican Republic played against Mexico? Because I look at their players, and they have a few players who are, you would say, hey, this is interesting. Surely no Junior Firpo, no Mariano, that they weren't part of this, but Peter Gonzalez on the outside, he scores the first goal, and then the player scores the second goal. He plays for the Las Vegas Lights. I'm looking at a Dominican Republic team right now that didn't fear Mexico, and I'm asking myself, do teams not fear Mexico anymore? Because I know it's a low moment for Mexico, but they came in saying we can go toe-to-toe with them.
I don't think it's a case of just not fearing Mexico, but more a case of self-belief and believing in who you are. And, well, kind of going back, that's kind of my greatest criticism of Trinidad and Tobago's performance against the U.S. tonight, that we never played a game that's natural to us. Now, credit to Dominican Republic for doing exactly that. Even after going a couple of goals down, again, for me, they never stopped posing a threat. They never stopped asking questions. And when you have a team that are in a bad period, as U.S. have been, as Mexico certainly are, this is your opportunity to really test them, to really make them ask questions of themselves. And the Dominican Republic did that. And again, while we certainly applaud Dominican Republic, Mexico happy with the 3 points, but they have a lot to ask of themselves. Yeah. From that, because if the Dominican Republic could ask these questions of you as you go further in this tournament, there will be greater questions. How do you stand up? How do you stand up to that test? That's the question that Igor has to figure out now. But credit Dominican Republic for, again, and I love that attitude of this is who we are. This is how we're going to play. We respect you. We're not in awe of you. And I thought that reaped rewards for them.
Yeah, I'll give credit to the Mexican players and the Mexican fan base who showed up in a very hostile moment in Los Angeles. Edson Alvarez showing the true leader he is, dedicating that goal to all the people in Los Angeles. But it's what you said. It's the playmakers and the leadership that they have. This game is won by individual brilliance, whether it's Raul Jimenez, whether it's Santi Jimenez with those plays. And in the end, it was enough to get them the win. Let's not forget they won the game. But will it be enough? Because next up in this tournament, it's going to be Costa Rica, who's coached by their ex-Mexican national team manager, Miguel Herrera.
It's a great opportunity for everybody.
It's a great opportunity.
This has been, the Gold Cup has been a closed shop for how many years?
Yeah.
Mexico 9 times, US 7 times, Canada once.
Yeah.
And now you can arguably say, to give it back to Jesse Marsh, because I have tons of respect
there we go.
for it, I mean, Canada may be the best team or the most consistent team in the region right now. But we also have Panama, which caused the US team problems, of course. So in a way, you know, this region is developing, but teams like Dominican Republic and others will say, on the day, we may have a chance, which in the past was nearly impossible.
Don't forget, the Dominican Republic missed out on World Cup qualifying. They did not advance to the next round. Saudi Arabia, by the way, the next opponent of the U.S. men's national team, is not in Concacaf, but is in the Gold Cup. And your boy, Mauricio Pedrosa, will be down in Austin for this Thursday night post-game. Do not miss us.